At number 10, Matthew Broderick. Matthew Broderick, the star of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, is actually one of those celebrities who've actually killed someone. He seems like such a genuinely good person, so when you find out that he's actually got a dark secret, it can be quite surprising. In 1987, Matthew and his then girlfriend Jennifer Grey were driving down a road in Northern Ireland after filming Ferris Bueller, and Matthew was driving in the wrong lane and into oncoming traffic. Well, no one knows why he was in the wrong lane or how he got there, but he ended up getting into a head-on collision with another car, killing the two women inside. After spending about a month in hospital, he not only got away with his life, but also the crash. Instead of facing jail time, for which he would have served a 5-year sentence, he was instead charged with careless driving and was given a $175 fine. The family of those who were killed in the accident have said that they have no hard feelings about Matthew having gotten away with the crime, because now he has to live with this guilt for the rest of his life. At number 9, Caitlyn Jenner. Here's another celebrity who has a dark past of having been involved in a fatal car crash. Caitlyn Jenner was involved in a 4-car crash in LA that ended with one person losing their life. According to sources, what happened was Caitlyn was driving on the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu when she hit the back of a 69-year-old woman's car. The impact sent the woman's car into oncoming traffic, where she was hit again by another driver. The woman, Kimberly Howe, died at the scene. After further investigations into the crash, it was found that Caitlyn was not speeding in this case and was actually traveling slower than Howe. Caitlyn failed to brake in time to avoid the collision with the other car, and this is what caused the following accident. After deliberations, it was determined that Caitlyn would be cleared of the charges against her, as the prosecutor could not determine that Caitlyn was responsible for the crash. Number 8, Josh Peck. If you were a fan of Drake and Josh in the past, this might break your heart a little. It seems like Josh Peck and Drake Bell are not the brothers that they used to be after some drama occurred surrounding the guest list of Josh's 2017 wedding. It all started when Drake tweeted about having not been invited to the wedding, where he said, quote, "When you're not invited to the wedding, the message is clear," end quote. Drake followed up this tweet saying, quote, "Loyalty is key, always remember where you came from," and ended his little Twitter rant by saying, quote, "True colors have come out this day, message is loud and clear, ties are officially cut, I'll miss you brother," end quote. Seems like Drake was pretty butthurt about this, but what did Josh have to say about it? Well, it turns out that the reason why Drake wasn't invited to the wedding was because he had neglected to congratulate Josh on his engagement. Understandable, I guess. The two ended up patching things up after some time had passed, but there was a time where Drake and Josh were at odds with each other, and this story sort of flew under the radar. So here's to the kids who grew up watching Drake and Josh. I'm keeping you guys updated. At number 7, Jerry Seinfeld. Did anyone else know that Jerry Seinfeld dated an 18-year-old when he was almost 40? Because I didn't, and it seemed like this story had totally flown under the radar. Until now, that is. But yes, you heard me correctly, Jerry Seinfeld dated an 18-year-old when he was 39. This was a thing back in 1993, where Jerry told sources that one day while in Central Park, he laid eyes on what he called the most wonderful girl in the world. He went to talk to her and exchanged numbers with the then 17-year-old. The girl, Shoshana Lonstein, was still in high school at the time of meeting the actor. When asked about their obvious age difference, Jerry said, quote, "I didn't realize she was so young. This is the only girl I ever went out with that was that young. I wasn't dating her. We just went to a restaurant and that was it." Over the next few months after Shoshana turned 18, the two were dating low-key. The tabloids saw him out with several women, including Shoshana, during this time, but they couldn't get over the age difference. Obviously, they're no longer together, but it was a total scandal at the time. At number 6, Mark Wahlberg. This one is quite a doozy, and you wouldn't really expect a story like this to involve Mark Wahlberg, but yet here we are. Apparently, Mark here has a history of racially motivated attacks, and this is one of the dark secrets that have remained hidden from people for quite some time. In 1986, Mark allegedly threw stones and shouted racial slurs at a group of black kids, and continued harassing them until someone had to step in and save them. On top of that, he continued his tyranny on the neighborhood's black kids as he harassed another group of kids the following day, gathering a group of white men and shouting and throwing rocks at the kids. A few years later, in 1988, Mark was involved in an incident where he yelled offensive things at a pair of Vietnamese men and hit one of the men over the head with a wooden stick, causing him to fall unconscious, and punched the other man in the eye. He got away with all of his actions, from the kids to the Vietnamese men, and a lot of people don't know about this, so here you go guys, another celebrity scandal. At number 5, Mitt Romney. I have a story about United States Senator Mitt Romney. Yeah, sure, he's not a Hollywood celebrity, but he ran against Obama in the 2012 presidential election, and Obama is a celebrity to me, so he's a celebrity by proxy. Just go with it. Besides, you want to hear this story. Anyway, back in 1983, Mitt Romney and his family were packing up their family car as they were on their way to their cottage in Ontario. Well, the whole family was coming, including their dog Seamus, but unfortunately, Seamus wasn't fitting in the car, and so to rectify this problem, Mitt put the pup in his crate and tied the crate to the roof of his car. I really wish I was joking, but I'm not. The family started driving, but soon Seamus got an upset tummy because he was so freaked out about being on the roof of the car, and so he started making some chocolate syrup, if you catch my drift, and it started dripping down the sides of the car. Mitt then pulled over, hosed the crate and car down, and continued to drive to Canada. This story didn't break until years later in 2006, and even still, it's been completely buried. This is such a horrible thing to do to your pet. If you wouldn't treat your child like this, don't do that to an animal. Period. At number 4, David DeLuise. His name might not click at first, but his face sure will. David DeLuise is the actor who played Jerry Russo in Wizards of Waverly Place on the Disney Channel. So you might be wondering what's so scandalous that he could make it onto this list. Well, dear viewer, you're about to be so shocked. In 2018, David was the unfortunate victim of a leak, and not the leaky faucet kind. This actor was hacked and his explicit photos began circling the internet. Luckily, his fans came to his aid to show him support and to bury the images online, but it's the internet and these things live online forever. Even former Disney co-star Selena Gomez had something to say about the leak, saying that she felt embarrassed for David and saddened that someone wanted to invade his privacy the way that they did. As someone who's been the victim of leaks and broken privacy herself, she can sympathize with David, but oh boy, was that a scandal. I can't believe I didn't know about this until now. At number 3, Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence got herself into some hot water after she was called out for being disrespectful to Hawaiian culture. Back in 2012, while shooting for the sequel to the Hunger Games film Catching Fire in Hawaii, she filmed a number of scenes in a wetsuit, and being in one for so long, she said that her butt got really itchy, and as one would do, she scratched the itch. However, instead of using her hand to scratch, she found an alternative. A rock. What's so problematic about this, you ask? Well, the rocks that she was using are seen as sacred by the Hawaiian people. In an interview where she talked about her butt-scratching incident, Jennifer said, quote, "There were sacred rocks. I don't know, they were ancestors, who knows? They were sacred, and you're not supposed to sit on them because you're not supposed to expose your genitalia to them." She went on to say that while scratching herself on the rocks, one of them came loose and prompted a landslide, saying, quote, "And all the Hawaiians were like, oh my god, it's the curse," and I'm in the corner going, "I'm your curse, I wedged it loose with my ass." Fans were not happy with the actress and her disrespect from Hawaiian culture, and so she got some heat from the incident. At number 2, Lindsay Lohan. In 2018, Lindsay Lohan started trending on Twitter in the middle of the night, and it was for a pretty wild reason. Basically what happened was Lindsay went live on Instagram while in Moscow, and she came across some people who she said were Syrian refugees. While live, she filmed the family and told them that she wanted to help them by getting them a hotel and food and letting them watch TV. She told them, quote, "I want you to tell America what you need and I will get it for you," end quote. She then turned to the kid that the family had with them and said that she was going to take him for the night so that she could help him, telling the family that they should not have their child being treated like this, sleeping on the floor, and said to the family that she would bring him back tomorrow. She then starts telling the kid to run away, trying to get him to leave his family and come with her. This whole time she's trying to convince this family to let her buy them a hotel room, and sort of starts getting frustrated when they don't go with her. As Lindsay keeps trying to take the kid, the child's mom gets up and punches her. She tells her live chat that she was in shock and that those people were trafficking and that all she wanted to do was help. Online, people were upset for Lindsay for, quote, being a white savior, and instead of coming across as a good person trying to help, she was instead seen as offensive. At number 1, O.J. Simpson. After being acquitted of the 1994 of his ex-wife, O.J. Simpson thought it was a bright idea to write a book. Not just any kind of book though, one that was a supposed fictional retelling of the crimes that he was accused of, but from the point of view of if he had really done it. Not only was it insensitive to the victims and their families, it also made people think that he was really guilty of the crimes because of the details of the book. It was almost incriminating. The book, called If I Did It, was supposed to get a TV adaptation as well, but it was all scrapped after the backlash that he and his ghostwriter got became too much. It was incredibly surprising to me, and I don't know how other people did not know about this, so I had to include it on this list. Can you believe it? At number 10, Matt LeBlanc. Remember that one episode of Friends where they joked about Joey being in an adult film? You know, the one where he played the copy machine guy? Well, did you know that that bit was actually based on real life? Yes, Matt LeBlanc, the actor who played Joey Tribbiani in Friends, actually had a part in an adult entertainment series before his time on Friends. Matt had a role in a Showtime series called The Red Shoe Diaries. This show was about a man who had written an ad for a newspaper asking people to send in their stories about life-changing encounters that they've had with their partners. The man who was the show's narrator would begin each episode by reading a letter aloud, and well, I'm sure you can imagine the rest. Matt LeBlanc had a steady role in the show, and though it isn't necessarily a traditional adult film setting, it's still funny to imagine him in this role, and it's still made for some pretty funny content on Friends. At number 9, Tim Allen. Today we know Tim Allen as an actor and comedian known for his roles on Home Improvement, the Santa Claus films, and Toy Story, but before his rise to fame, he was actually a felon. In 1978, just shortly after beginning his stand-up career, Tim was caught by drug-sniffing dogs at the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport, carrying 1.4 pounds of that good old no-no snow. After being caught with the illegal substance, he faced life imprisonment, but luckily for him, he was offered a deal. In exchange for helpful information, he would be given a reduced sentence. Clearly, he took the deal, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about him right now. Tim ended up ratting on the other dealers he knew, and his sentence was subsequently reduced to 3 to 7 years behind bars rather than a life sentence. Tim was released from prison 28 months later at the age of 29, and because he was a convicted felon, he found it hard to find work, so he tried giving stand-up comedy another go. Obviously, it was a good choice, and Tim is now a household name. So perhaps getting caught was the best thing that has ever happened to him. At number 8, Leighton Meester. Leighton Meester, the actress known for playing Blair Waldorf on Gossip Girl, shares something in common with Tim Allen, being that they both spent time behind bars, though for very different reasons. Leighton was born in prison. Yep, you heard that right. This all came out around the beginning of Gossip Girl's run on TV, and everyone was shocked. Essentially, Leighton's mom was arrested in 1983 for trying to smuggle 1,200-pound shipments of Mary Jane out of Jamaica. Leighton's mom, Connie, her boyfriend, and her sister were all arrested. Connie's sister actually ended up breaking out of prison and became the first woman in the US to land on the US Marshals Most Wanted list. After Leighton was born, her parents were released from prison, and eventually Leighton made her way to LA where she started her acting career. She's since had a lot of trouble with her mom, even going so far as to win custody of her brother, but that is another story for another time. At number 7, Adam Hicks. This one is for the Disney Channel kids. Did anyone watch the Disney Channel movie Lemonade Mouth? Well, one of the film's actors, Adam Hicks, has seen his fair share of troubles after leaving Disney. Yet another Disney actor gone rogue. 2018, Adam was arrested for armed robbery after it was believed that he committed 4 or 5 robberies along with his girlfriend Danny Tamburo. According to sources, Adam and Danny allegedly committed these robberies by walking around the San Fernando Valley in California and would go up to innocent people and hold them at gunpoint and demand that they give them anything of value, whether that be cell phones, wallets, jewelry, or otherwise. Now, from what I've seen, there's no word on whether he's been sentenced, but he was being held in police custody with his bail being held at $550,000. His arraignment was postponed last time I checked, but other than that, this scandal has gone cold, so that's probably why no one has heard of it. At number 6, Woody Harrelson. We know Woody Harrelson as a successful actor known for films like The Hunger Games, Now You See Me, and Natural Born Killers, but the latter is a movie that might hit Woody here a little close to home. You see, he's not the only one in his family to have notoriety because his father Charles has also garnered fame, but for all the wrong reasons. Woody Harrelson's dad was a hitman. When paparazzi and reporters want to dig up your past to use against you, this one will certainly strike a nerve with Woody. Charles Harrelson was a hitman known by most as the man who assassinated U.S. federal judge John H. Wood. According to Woody, his father Charles left the family when he was still young and said that he hadn't heard from him until 1981 when the news of his father's arrest was broadcast. Until his death in 2007, Woody had a strained relationship with his father, though he admitted that he would visit him in prison often. Of all of the celebrity parents, Woody's dad was definitely one of the wildest. At number 5, Milli Vanilli. The lip sync scandal that surrounded Milli Vanilli was one of music's biggest scandals, and I've never heard about it. Have you? Essentially, Milli Vanilli was a musical duo that was never really real. I mean, they were real people, but their music wasn't theirs. The stage act was put together by German record producer Frank Farian in an attempt to create a star from scratch. He had a vision to be able to put out this amazing music, but he needed the perfect act to sell it. That's where Morvan and Politis came into play. These two dancers were hired by Farian to be the faces of Milli Vanilli, and though it was a musical act, they didn't have to sing. In fact, they never did. The songs were written and produced for them to lip sync to, and it worked for a while, but like all good things, they can never last. Milli Vanilli conquered the Billboard charts and even won a Grammy for their song Girl You Know It's True. They were asked to tour and perform live, but since this act never actually sang, things started to get difficult for them and playing pretend wasn't working anymore. When they would encounter technical difficulties with their track while live, it was stressful and humiliating. Eventually, they were caught in their lie as their track suddenly stopped working during a live performance, revealing to the world that they were faking it all along. This took a huge toll on the duo, especially their mental health, driving Politis to take their own life. This ended in tragedy, but it was still a huge scandal at the time. At number 4, Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf is always in some kind of trouble. He's either making waves in the media for acting a mess, whether that's being racist or pulling wild stunts. Most recently, he's faced backlash as he's been accused of harming his ex-girlfriend FKA Twigs. But there's another scandal, rather scandals, that might not be as well known, and that's his plagiarism and lying. Shia LaBeouf has been caught plagiarizing people's work and lying about it on many occasions, but he's never really learned from his mistakes. He's been caught plagiarizing apologies, then plagiarizing other apologies to apologize for plagiaries. He's copied the actions of Sia and the words of Tigger and a plethora of other people, but one of the biggest plagiarism scandals he faced is when he ripped off a plot from a graphic novel for his film HowardCantor.com, which premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. When he got caught plagiarizing, he claimed that he had no idea that the plot was the same, and then when issuing a statement/apology for his actions, he once again turned to plagiarism and copied a Yahoo Answers post. Because of how many times he's done something like this, I have to wonder if he's doing this on purpose to make it his brand or something, because he knows he's not getting away with it. At number 3, Dr. Seuss. Recently, we've been hearing a lot of news about Dr. Seuss. Well, his books, really. Though he was a beloved children's book author, famous for creating The Cat in the Hat, The Grinch, and Horton Hears a Who, now people are finding out that some of his books contain racist imagery. 6 of Dr. Seuss's books have now been pulled from his collection and will no longer be published because of racist imagery, but this discussion isn't new and has been a minor scandal for many, many years. A survey of Seuss's work found that the portrayal of black characters in his books relied heavily on, quote, anti-blackness and images of white supremacy, end quote. Schools and libraries have been banning many of Seuss's books because of the racist portrayals of non-white characters, and these criticisms have been linked as far back as the 80s. It's good to know that now people are recognizing racism and taking action to eliminate it from our world, so it's a good step forward. This scandal has been brewing in the background for some time now, so people are only now learning about it, which is probably why no one really knew about it until recently. At number 2, Sinead O'Connor. In October 1992, Sinead O'Connor caused some controversy during her guest spot on SNL. She was brought on the show to be the evening's musical guest, and already people were a little confused by her as she refused to sing one of her songs from her recent album at the time. She instead opted to sing an a cappella version of Bob Marley's song War. It was an intense performance, and she even changed some of the lyrics to specifically mention young people. As the song came to an end and she was wrapping up her performance, she pulled out a photo of Pope John Paul II and tore it up, saying, quote, fight the real enemy. Sinead's actions caused a huge stir. After her performance, NBC started receiving thousands of angry calls over the following days, and even some celebrities came forward to criticize her actions. She wanted to bring attention to the Catholic Church's treatment of young people because she's had personal experience with such things. I never knew about the scandal, so I'm curious to know how many of you guys remember this. And finally, at number 1, Justin Bieber. J. Biebs has had a plethora of scandals. As we all know, he's had a rough time in the public eye for many years, and he's caused a lot of trouble. His relationship with Selena Gomez, as well as many DUIs, music scandals, as well as being banned from some places are a few that come to mind, but one scandal that might be news to some is that in 2011, a woman alleged that Justin was the father of her child. Mariah Yeater came forward in 2011 claiming that she had once met up with Justin backstage after one of his concerts and that he had fathered her child. When this news first broke, Justin said that he had never even met Mariah, let alone had a relationship with her, but since the media was blowing the story up and Mariah guy was looking to enter into a paternity suit, Justin agreed to take a DNA test to prove that the baby wasn't his. He ended up addressing this whole situation in his song Maria, but unfortunately for the Biebs, this kind of thing would happen again in 2013 with yet another fan. He didn't father any children though, so I guess that's good for him. At number 10, Katy Perry. One person that you don't often think about having a scandal is Katy Perry. I mean, yeah, she's had some beefs here and there, but nothing too major, right? Well, I mean, she did have a pretty big beef with some nuns, and it was kind of a big deal. Back in 2015, Katy was in a feud with a group of nuns that turned into a legal battle because they just didn't like her. Let me explain. Katy was trying to buy the Sisters of the Most Holy and Immaculate Heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary's aging convent in LA for $14.5 million. She gave her offer to the Los Angeles Archdiocese in order to purchase the property, but when the nuns caught wind of this transaction, they were like, heck no, and went behind the Archdiocese back to sell the property to a different buyer. They did this because they didn't like what they saw in Katy's music videos and they thought it was too inappropriate. They ended up selling the property for less than Katy offered. The nuns got into some pretty big trouble with the Archdiocese, and he even ended up taking the matter to court and even accused the buyer of taking advantage of the nuns. They ended up winning the property back so that Katy could still buy it. She got brought into all of this mess because Katy wasn't wholesome enough for the nuns. But I mean, have you seen Katy? She's a doll. I'd sell her anything. At number 9, Jude Law. You may know Jude Law from films like Sherlock Holmes, Fantastic Beasts, and The Young Pope, but you might not know about Jude's streak as a Hollywood heartbreaker. Jude was sort of known to have a number of partners, and he and his wife were rumored to have been swingers, someone who would swap partners from time to time. But there came a time where he seemingly left that life behind and entered into a new relationship with actress Sienna Miller. Things were fine and they even got engaged until a cheating scandal erupted that blew everything out of the water. In 2006, a woman named Daisy Wright, who was the nanny for Jude's children, came forward about an alleged affair that she'd been having with Jude. She did an interview with the Sunday Mirror, a British news publication, and went in depth about her relationship with the actor, sharing every juicy detail. She even shared details about their passionate lovemaking and went on to say that Jude was, quote, a great lover who knows how to satisfy a woman. People couldn't believe what was happening, having Jude exposed like that, but in a surprise turn, Jude actually owned up to his actions. He came forward and came clean about everything, making a public apology to his then fiancée. It was scandalous, but very few people actually know about this. At number 8, Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth Paltrow is known for being a little odd. Her brand Goop has garnered a few haters because of how strange and unorthodox it is. She's advertised a number of strange health and beauty products on her site that have people scratching their heads, and her must-have list nearly always includes products that are much too expensive for normal people to afford. Really, the consensus is that Goop is weird, and it's actually gotten her into some legal trouble in the past. In 2018, Gwyneth was faced with a lawsuit against Goop filed by the California Food, Drug, and Medical Device Task Force over 3 products that were sold from the Goop website. The $66 jade eggs, $55 rose quartz eggs that were advertised to benefit women's health down there, and the flower essence blend that was advertised to, quote, assist in clearing of guilt, shame, and self-criticism and blame. After being taken to court, Gwyneth settled and was ordered to pay $145,000 and reimburse customers who bought those 3 products, as well as refrain from advertising products that don't actually have any benefits. At number 7, Cat Williams. You don't always hear about celebrities having Karen moments, but when they do, oh boy, is it entertaining. In April 2016, comedian Cat Williams had a Karen moment, and it ended with him throwing a salt shaker at an employee. It all started when Cat had arrived at a restaurant with members of his family. When they got there, they started seating themselves, but were promptly told that they needed to move because the spot that they had chosen to sit at was already being reserved by another group. Cat then got into a heated argument with employees over the seating arrangement, and then that is where things escalated. He ended up throwing a salt shaker at a restaurant manager. Police were called after Cat threw the salt shaker, but before officers arrived, he had left the scene. He was later found at a Waffle House where he was arrested and charged with 1 count of battery. Now, I have no clue what was said during this altercation, but I do have a feeling that the most famous phrase of "do you know who I am" was uttered, and I can definitely bet money on it. At number 6, Nicolas Cage. There's nothing worse than getting exposed by a book. Well, I mean, there are worse things in life, but for a celebrity, bad press can be detrimental to your image. For Nicolas Cage, he was met with some pretty harsh accusations of dog napping from actress Kathleen Turner, as she wrote in her 2008 memoir, Send Yourself Roses, that he, quote, came across a chihuahua that he liked and stuck it in his jacket. Like I said, bad press can do some serious damage to a celebrity's career, and Nick knew this, so upon finding out about her accusation, he promptly sued her for defamation, libel, and slander. Luckily for him, Nick came out on top and won his case, and in return, Kathleen had to issue an apology to him and paid his legal fees and issued a donation to a charity of his choosing. He chose the National Adult Protective Services Foundation, a charity that benefits victims of elder abuse. I really like how he made her donate to a charity and pay it forward rather than just giving him a bunch of money. It's a nicer thing to do. At number 5, Sean Combs. Celebrities get sued by random people for random things all the time. Most times, they don't even get reported on because they're just so menial, but this story was so wild that it just had to be shared. Sean Combs, aka Diddy, faced a lawsuit in 2011 from a woman who made a number of wild claims against him. She sued the rapper for $1 trillion because she claimed that he was her child's father and that he never paid her child support, and that he once stole a poker chip from her that was worth, quote, 100 zillions of dollars. I cannot make this stuff up. Of the $1 trillion that she was suing for, she claimed that $900 billion was for unpaid child support payments and the rest was for emotional damages. On top of that, she submitted handwritten legal claims that claimed that he had physically hurt her and her kids and that he was the one behind the tragic 9/11 attacks. This lawsuit really didn't go anywhere, but it did get a court date, so it's really more than I was expecting. She also applied for a restraining order against Diddy, but that was denied. This was all so crazy, so I wonder how many people actually knew about this. At number 4, George Lopez. It's not every day that you see a big Hollywood star making headlines in Canada. Really, our news headlines are about maple syrup and igloos and the best way to prepare your moose for winter. I'm kidding, but hearing about celebrities getting into shenanigans in the Great White North isn't something that you hear often. Back in 2014, George Lopez was performing a comedy show at a casino in Windsor, Ontario, and he got a little too enamored with that good old Canadian hospitality because he ended up getting pretty tipsy. After having performed his stand-up routine, he had some celebratory drinks at the casino and got a little carried away. George ended up flat on the floor after drinking to excess and passing out in the casino. Police were called and took him into custody for the night, though no charges were laid. Later on, he poked fun at his intoxication, saying that he was headed to his room that night, but just, quote, missed it by 35 floors. George reportedly gave up drinking after that night. At number 3, Bruno Mars. These days, we don't hear much about Bruno Mars, but there was a time when he faced some pretty big trouble and not everyone knows about it. Back in 2010, Bruno was arrested in Las Vegas after a show for suspected possession of that good old no-no-snow. According to the police report, Bruno was arrested after hotel security discovered that the singer was in possession of illegal narcotics and he was detained. It was later found that he had 2.6 grams of no-no-snow on him. In order to avoid jail time, Bruno ended up taking a plea deal, paying a fine, and serving 1 year probation. I was surprised to find this out about Bruno because he seemed so genuine, but now I don't know what to believe. At number 2, Mila Kunis. I have a few more wild celebrity lawsuits that I want to share with you because more people need to know about this. Some of you may recall that actress Mila Kunis is from the Ukraine. Well, when she was a kid, she apparently had a friend who had a pet chicken. Well, one day this chicken just disappeared and Mila was blamed for its disappearance. Well, years later, after Mila became a successful actress, Christina Caro, Mila's childhood friend, ended up moving to America to pursue her dream of becoming a singer, but to her surprise, she moved to an area that was pretty close to where Mila was living. This brought up some deep-rooted emotions for Christina because she suddenly remembered her poor lost chicken and she ended up seeking therapy to help her cope. Christina also issued a lawsuit against Mila for having allegedly stolen her pet chicken from years ago and was looking to receive money to cover her therapy bills. Christina alleged that this trauma prevented her from, quote, pursuing the American dream. Later, it was alleged that this was all just a publicity stunt to promote her song, but I really don't know how well that worked for her. Still, the mystery as to what happened to the chicken remains unsolved. And finally, at number 1, Beyonce. I saved the best one for last. I don't know how many people have heard of this, so please tell me down in the comments if you've heard of this story. This seems to be a little obscure, so just let me know. Anyways, Beyonce is one of the biggest names in music, as we all know. I mean, she didn't earn the title of Queen Bee for nothing. She's faced a number of wild lawsuits in the past, including one where someone claimed to have been the surrogate for Beyonce's daughter Blue Ivy. But one story in particular takes the cake, and not enough people know about it. Beyonce was once sued by one of her former drummers for allegedly using extreme witchcraft to ruin her life. The drummer, a woman by the name of Kimberly Thompson, claimed that the singer used magic spells on her, killed her pet cat, cursed her relationships, and made her lose out on money and jobs. She also claimed that Beyonce stole her home, property, computer, and hard drives, and that she tapped her phone as well. There's no proof that Beyonce ever did any of these things, but if she really did use magic, how would she have left evidence? Smart. The judge threw this case out and also denied her request for a restraining order. Wild stuff. At number 10, Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan is known to be kind of a diva. It's probably all chalked up to the fact that she became such a big Hollywood star at such a young age, but either way, she's got some diva attitude. It's because of this diva attitude that I'm not surprised that she's sued people for ridiculous claims, because why wouldn't she? In 2010, Lindsay issued a lawsuit against E-Trade for $100 million over their company's Super Bowl ad because she claimed that they, quote, used her name and characterization without her permission. In the ad, it basically follows a conversation between two babies, with one of them asking if they're bailing on their plans to hang out with, quote, that milkaholic Lindsay. Lindsay claimed that this ad was trying to be a parody on her life as well as her documented struggles with alcoholism. She also claimed that this ad was about her because they used her name and she is, quote, widely recognized by just her first name, like Cher or Madonna. The lawsuit was eventually settled in court, but very few people actually know that this legal matter was ever a real thing. At number 9, Jamie Oliver. Celebrity chefs are celebrities too, and just like any other big name person, they're subject to scandal. Their scrutiny can be for a number of things because with these celebrities, the possibilities are endless. With celebrity chef Jamie Oliver, he faced some scrutiny and widespread hate from a whole nation because they were offended by his food, and it was pretty wild. Not everyone can unite a nation, but when Jamie Oliver did it in 2014, it was fueled by food and anger. In October 2014, Jamie took a recipe for jollof rice, a West African dish that is described as the heart and soul of the nation, and reinvented it. Apparently, this reinvention didn't look anything like the original dish, and people were really mad about it. This recipe post then received thousands of angry comments from African food bloggers saying that not only is this recipe a disgrace to the culture, but it also skewed the way African culture and cuisine is seen and represented in the rest of the world. People saw this as another instance of, quote, Europe taking African culture and doing what they want with it. This actually wasn't the first or last time Jamie has experienced recipe outrage like this, as 2 years after this scandal, Jamie angered people from Spain for his take on paella, saying that he even received death threats for that scandal. I think the takeaway from this scandal is to stick to the source material. At number 8, Simon Cowell. Speaking of chefs, this next scandal involving Simon Cowell also involves another chef, but at least this one isn't offending entire nations with their cooking. In 2009, a personal chef issued a lawsuit against Simon Cowell and his ex-girlfriend Terry Seymour because she claimed that they stole her shoes. The chef said that the couple failed to return her shoes after they asked her to remove them when she entered their home for an interview. These were special shoes because they had special $500 orthopedic insoles, and she really wanted them back. The chef in her $661 lawsuit claimed that she had made several attempts to retrieve her shoes, each time being unsuccessful. She even drove all the way back to Simon and Terry's house, where Terry's assistant helped to look for them. The lawsuit was ultimately settled and ended with Simon paying court fees, the gas money owed to the chef for driving to their house, and finally returning the shoes. Why he stole them, I have no idea, but at least the chef got them back in the end. At number 7, 50 Cent. Here's another crazy lawsuit scandal that you might not have heard of. Rapper 50 Cent issued a lawsuit against Taco Bell back in 2008. He sued the fast food chain for $4 million because he claimed that the restaurant used his name for advertising purposes without his consent. Taco Bell had thought of a new ad campaign, issuing a press release to ask 50 Cent to change his name to 79 cent, 89 cent, or 99 cent for a day to promote their low price menu, and then wrap his order at a Taco Bell. The company said that if he did that, then they'd donate $10,000 to a charity of his choice. Well, instead of getting a publicity campaign, they got a lawsuit instead after the rapper found out about Taco Bell's campaign because people were calling him a sellout for taking this apparent endorsement. He took the company to court and won, receiving an undisclosed settlement. This wasn't the first time 50 Cent had sued a company over similar claims. A year prior to this scandal, 50 Cent sued an internet ad company for using his likeness without his permission, so people say that Taco Bell should have known better. Someone from the ad department definitely got fired after that one. At number 6, Jay-Z. Jay-Z has had his ups and downs in the media, but he's also had a few scandals here and there, from beefs to fights and everything in between, but there's one scandal that you might not have heard of and involves a lawsuit. Rappers and singers don't always write their own music, though many may assume it's all from the heart. Sometimes it is from other people's brains, but most times other people's brains receive their credit for what they've written. In the case of Jeffrey Philston, that credit never came, but it wasn't exactly deserved either. The Florida man issued a $90 million lawsuit against Jay-Z because he claimed that he had been his ghostwriter for years, but he never received any credit or monetary compensation. Jeffrey had written to the rapper while in jail and allegedly sent him some lyrics. Jeffrey then said that the lyrics he wrote for the rapper ended up in the song Watch the Crown, and Jay-Z allegedly sent Jeff a letter saying, quote, "You gave me the most help in this industry, but I refuse to pay you. I know that you are thinking I am a millionaire, but that's just how it is. I've conned you," end quote. The man obviously didn't receive his $90 million lawsuit, but he did hold a grudge against the rapper. At number 5, Benicio del Toro. This scandal seemed to have been a shock to a lot of people because of how unexpected and random it was. News broke last year about actor Benicio del Toro and his connection to Rod Stewart's daughter Kimberly. The two apparently had a one-night stand that then resulted in Kim getting pregnant with Benicio's child. This came as a shock to a surprising number of people because they became a couple that no one was expecting. I can't say I know much about either of them, but people seemed to be taken aback by this baby scandal because it was just so random. So I had to include it on this list. Let me know down in the comments if you knew about this and if it surprised you. At number 4, Miley Cyrus. Coming in hot with another scandal, we have Miley Cyrus's $4 billion lawsuit. Yes, that is right, I said billion. In 2009, a woman in Los Angeles issued a lawsuit against Miley because of a racist photo that had been circulating around the internet. The photo showed Miley and a group of other people posing for the photo, pulling back their eyelids, and the woman suing Miley, Lucy Kim, issued a class action lawsuit against the singer, demanding that she pay $4,000 to every Asian Pacific Islander in Los Angeles County to compensate them for the harm they suffered by seeing the photo, because she claimed that the picture, quote, violated the civil rights of Asian Pacific Islanders. Miley claimed that the photo in question was taken out of context and issued an apology. Ultimately, the judge threw out the case, but Miley's legal team did request that Lucy not have to pay her legal fees because the court argued that her lawsuit wasn't exactly without merit. At number 3, Elizabeth Taylor. Imagine having a cheating scandal that is so messy and turbulent that the Pope has to step in. Sounds wild, but this actually happened with Elizabeth Taylor back in the day. Elizabeth Taylor married 7 times in her life, but during this time she had also entered into a few affairs as well. After starring in the film Cleopatra in Rome, Elizabeth found herself in love with Richard Burton. Both of them were already married, but this didn't stop them from pursuing each other and eventually divorcing their respective partners. This relationship was scandalous because they just couldn't get enough of each other. Paparazzi were all over this story and eventually it reached the Vatican. Since the movie that Elizabeth and Richard were working on was set in Rome, which surrounds Vatican City, the Vatican was not happy about this affair or their steamy connection, and they tore the actress apart in one of their newspapers. Even the Pope couldn't stop their love for each other, and Elizabeth and Richard got married, but it was still quite the scandal, and to hear that the Vatican was involved just makes it that much juicier. At number 2, Charlie Chaplin. I think everybody is familiar with Charlie Chaplin, right? The famous silent movie star from the early days of Hollywood. Well, he faced a lot of scandals back in his day, but one that is the most surprising surrounds how he got banned from the US. After the events of World War II, the fear of communism in America started to heighten. Specifically, in the early 50s, people were told to stay vigilant about any signs of communism from basically everyone and everything. Charlie Chaplin ended up on the list of people to fear after it was suggested that he was a communist. Though he had lived and worked in the US for about 40 years, he became a target of the Un-American Activities Committee and was put on an FBI blacklist in 1948, preventing him from working in Hollywood. A few years later, in 1952, when he sailed to Britain on holiday, he got word that if he were to return to the US, he would be arrested. After that, he stayed away for good. The only time he ever went back to the US was in 1972 to pick up an honorary Oscar award. And finally, at number 1, John Lennon. The Beatles were a huge hit at the height of their fame, but members of the band also faced scandal, as every celebrity does. John Lennon had his share of controversies, but one that is pretty surprising and that not many people know about is about how he once said that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. In 1966, John Lennon did an interview where he was asked all sorts of questions like how he lives, his interests, and so on, but his comments on Christianity was where things got heated. In the profile he said, quote, "Christianity will go, it will vanish and shrink. I needn't argue about that. I'm right and will be proved right. We are more popular than Jesus now. I don't know which will go first, rock and roll or Christianity. Jesus was alright, but his disciples were thick and ordinary. It's them twisting it that ruins it for me." Now, when this profile was first released in UK, no one thought anything of his comments on Christianity, but when the article was republished worldwide a few months later, things got messy when it hit the US. A radio station in Alabama got hold of John's comments and proposed a ban on the Beatles, refusing to play their music and smashing their records. This anti-Beatles mindset began to spread further, angering more people until eventually Lennon apologized and things died down, making for a chaotic few months.